Yeah, so we're going to talk about some new small grain varieties for spring 2025. And yeah, Ty put up the cover of our new spring catalog. If my dad were still alive, he would roll his eyes because I can't even remember how many pages this thing is this year. It's 76 pages. It just seems to get bigger every year. But there's a lot of stuff in there and a lot of good information, and I hope that you find it valuable. If you don't have it yet, don't worry, it should show up soon. If it doesn't show up sometime in the next couple weeks, give us a call and we will make sure that you get one. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the first thing we're going to do is talk about new oat varieties. And if you have this catalog already, this would be on page 30. Ehrhardt is actually not a new variety, but it's a new variety to us. And it came out of the North Dakota State breeding program, and they chose not to protect it with a PVP or plant variety protection designation. And for that reason, it's suddenly become quite interesting as a cover crop oat, because most of the oats that get used for cover cropping, oats like Jerry, some of the older ones like Morton, Jerry, etc., do not have crown rust resistance anymore because they've been in the marketplace so long and crown rust mutates every year. So Ehrhardt was released only a few years back and it still has pretty good crown rust resistance. And for that reason, as a cover crop oat, you can grow it and save seed and even sell seed without running afoul of the PVP law since it's not a plant variety protected variety. And B, you have a crop that's not going to be as damaged by crown rust. And as we'll talk about in a later presentation today, I think we all got a big lesson in crown rust in 2024. So that's the reason we're carrying it. It's primarily a cover crop oat, but it's a unique cover crop oat because it's a named variety with good crown rust resistance. There are other higher yielding oats if you're trying to grow oats for milling, or even for on-farm use for animal feed. Some of the other oats that we carry will yield more, but Ehrhardt brings the crown rust resistance, which is a really nice feature, especially if you're going to graze or take your cover crop oats for hay, because if your oats get really rusty, the quality and the tonnage goes down. And so that's why we carry Ehrhardt. The other new one for us this year is Mink, which came out of the University of Wisconsin. Was the highest yielding oat in the University of Minnesota trials for the last 3 years. It does not look as high yielding in Wisconsin. It does not look quite as high yielding in the PFI trials, but what can you say? It's been excellent yielding in the University of Minnesota trials. Also, the two seed growers of this variety really liked it for yield and quality. There's some conflicting information about its maturity, and so I want to explain that note a little bit. If you look at the fourth bullet point down, it talks about how maturity ratings were variable among Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin variety trials. And our theory of what's going on here is that Minnesota rates oats for maturity based on their heading date, while Wisconsin rates oats for maturity based on their actual senescence. And so our working theory is that Mink flowers very late, reaches anthesis very late, but then matures quickly. And so whether or not that theory ends up being true, I'm not 100% sure, but that's kind of the only way that we can figure out to explain the differences in ratings. I will say that one of the primary seed growers of this variety had it side by side in a field with Rains oats. And for those of you who are familiar with Rains, it's a very early variety. And according to this grower, who was in Illinois, Mink matured on almost the same day, was planted on the same day and matured 1 day later than Rains, yielded more and had better test weight than Rains. So all that to the good. The only other downside to this variety is the last bullet point. We do not recommend growing this variety at this point anyhow for milling oats because it is not yet an approved variety for milling. And there's some discussion among the millers about whether the shape of the kernel is going to be going to allow it to be useful for milling. So jury's still out on that, but excellent for yield, and it does bring really good crown rust resistance. Thanks. You got anything else to add there, Ty? I think I talked him to death.
Yeah. No, that's kind of there. And speaking of Rains, that's another oat there. This one is probably our best oat for underseeding. Is nice, good test weight. nice shorter oat. It's even though it's an old one, I think it was released in 2016. It's still going strong among the millers and everything that they like it and everything. So it is. Hopefully soon we'll have another one out of Illinois, but right now Reigns is still a good one for underseeding. As again said, nice short oat, so it works well with alfalfa. Anything else you'd like to add about that one there?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. We wish that it had better crown rust resistance, but again, it's because it's been in the marketplace for a number of years, its crown rust resistance has faded.
Yep. And then the next one, if you are going for the milling oat, like we said, Rushmore. That one's out of the South Dakota State University. It's a very good oat yield, well, probably our heaviest test weight oat. Last year in the Minnesota trials, they got a test weight of 37.7. So it's consistently high among the high yielding and heavy test weight oats. Crown rust is good, average there, but it has excellent barley outdoor virus resistance in there. So that would be a good one for milling if you're going that one, just because it nice consistent yields and again the heavy test weight.
I don't think there are any more oat slides, are there, Ty? This is the last one.
No, we just kind of these are nice
I would
go-tos for them.
Just mention that we are going to be launching 2 or 3 new oat varieties for 2026. So more on that later. We have no reason to talk about them today because there's none to plant. But we do continue to look for new varieties all the time that bring crown rust resistance, yield, test weight, and the other things that farmers need. So we're working on it.
Now we have some harder red spring wheat.
Yeah, and so this little snapshot is directly out of the catalog, and if you'll look, you will see that underneath each variety, whether it's Ascend or Torgi or Linkert, some of them are available as conventional, and some of them are available as both conventional and organic. And so be aware of that. Unfortunately, we are sold out of bowls. We had a problem with Fusarium head blight in bowls that lowered the germination enough that we have decided simply to not sell it this year. So unfortunately, we do not have bowls wheat. So the 3 varieties that we are carrying this year are Ascend, Torgi, and Linkert. And I'm going to just talk about why you plant one and not the other. Ascend is simply the highest yielding wheat that we sell. It's a South Dakota variety that has tremendous top-end yield. Kind of average for protein and quality, but just really, really good yield, as well as excellent disease resistance. Minnesota Torgi is one we've sold now, I think, for 3 years, and it's what we'd call a balanced variety. So it has very good yield potential. You can see it in University of Minnesota trials and other state trials doing very well for yield, but it also brings excellent tolerance to Fusarium head blight or scab. It also brings pretty good test weight and protein, so decent quality. And so it's an all-around good variety. We have had some success with Torgi moving south and east out of the normal hard red spring wheat production areas. It's done a good job. And then the last one is Linkert. And we brought Linkert on because some of the millers and bakers really like Linkert, the flavor of Linkert and the milling and baking quality of Linkert. It does not yield as much as Torgi or Ascend. It's also very short, which some people like because that means they can combine it standing because it's short and very good standing. Unfortunately, it only has average tolerance to Fusarium head blight, so that makes it a little suspect, especially for organic farmers who don't have the ability to use fungicides. But for milling and baking quality, it's essentially #1 of all the varieties that we sell. Did I miss anything there, Ty?
No, but yeah, no, this is a good coverage. Basically, the nitty-gritty is if you're going for a good high-end yield, you Ascend. If you want a nice balanced variety, Torgi, and if you have a market for the milling and baking industry, I would go with Linkert because we did bring that on because we kept on hearing it mentioned by the millers and bakers. Next, we'll have some heirloom grains.
Yep, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. People that are interested in einkorn or emmer can look at our catalog and learn about, or may already know about these. One confusing thing for people right now is that even for our sales staff is that we currently don't have any einkorn to sell. However, I fully expect we will have einkorn available to sell and plant in the spring of 2025. The challenge is the lot that I've identified that's we've got in for a germ test, and we want to make sure, absolutely sure, we know what the germination is, so we can price it accordingly. Because I think, unfortunately, it's probably going to have substandard germination, something in the mid 70s to lower 80s, and so we want to be super clear about that before we start taking orders on it. And then we do have emmer available, and the emmer that we have is the variety Lucille, and it's only available as organic seed. I think that's enough on those for right now.
Yep. And then just one more, the new one.
The new, the new one from the 1800s, a very recent release from the 1800s. And we brought on Red Fife because it is another one that's popular with artisan millers and bakers for its flavor qualities, and also because it was bred and developed pre-Green Revolution. And so some people feel like, therefore, it has less chance of causing problems with gluten. I'm not here to tell you that's the truth. I'm just telling you that that's why some people like the old wheat varieties. It is lower yielding than modern wheat. It also doesn't stand as well as a modern wheat, but the flavor profile and the milling and baking characteristics are what make this one a popular spring wheat variety among growers. And we recommend seeding this at a little lower rate than you would seed a modern hard red spring wheat, again, because it doesn't stand quite as well. So whereas you might seed a variety like Linkert or Torgy at up to 120 pounds an acre, or maybe even a little thicker than that, Red Fife, you don't want to go that thick because as the population gets too dense, you have more lodging. So we recommend, depending on how fertile your ground is, somewhere between 50 and 100 pounds to the acre.
Yep, and then we also recommend around that 100 pounds an acre for the emmer and the einkorn. The same reasons as Mac just explained why. On that, next, we have some two-row barley. So first one we'll have is ND Genesis. That's a good barley for feed, forage, and malting. That's really good malting characteristics that has been identified in the malting and brewing industry. It's a good fit for Minnesota, South Dakota, and the eastern U.S. It was released by North Dakota State University. It's good leaf resistance, and it's good standability as well. It's one of the higher yielding oats still for the two-row, and it is good protein as well. Okay. All right, and then the new one that we brought on here is Hudson, New York. Mac, you want to talk about this one a little bit more?
Yeah, I'll just be brief because we don't have very much of this, and the seed that we do have has a low germination. As we put on a bullet point there, the germination is only 78%. So I don't think there's going to be very many people on this call that want to try it. It was a new one released by Cornell specifically for the northeastern United States because it's supposed to have really good all-around disease tolerance and pretty good yield. So you can see it yielded more than ND Genesis, at least in eastern testing. And that's why we brought it on. It is a two-row malting barley. One other thing about both of these varieties, you'll see both of them have two asterisks after the variety name. And if you were looking at our full catalog, you could look at the key, and that would tell you that both of these varieties require a licensing agreement before we ship it. And in our new software, we can send you the licensing agreement to sign right along with your sales order. So you're able to just electronically sign a licensing agreement with either the Cornell University or, in the case of ND Genesis, it's NDSU, in order to be able to plant these varieties. Hey, Mick, yeah, so I'll grab this one quick, Ty. Sorry to jump in front of you, but as of right now, we only have a Lavina, and it's a two-row forage barley that is awnless. So it's specifically bred for forage. It's an awnless variety, so you don't have to worry about the awns leading to feed refusal. and it's a really nice tall variety, good for baling or silage. We do not recommend them for underseeding. Levina is not released by Montana State. Haymaker was, but Levina comes out of a different breeding program. And I think as of right now, we only have conventional Levina. I do not believe we have any organic.
That's correct. No, it's some 6-row barley. So 4 of these options here. First one we'll go over is Quest. This one's gonna be available only as organic. It's a nice choice for organic farming because it does have some good disease resistance with it as well. It can be a forage or grain. It is going to be a little higher. It's higher yielding and better standing than robust. It was released by the University of Minnesota, and it continues to be kind of on the upper end of the yield in the Minnesota trials. It got last year, you were almost 100 bushels per acre, and then follow that with Quest. Quest will be only available organically, like I said, and then robust will be available pretty much conventionally. On that one, if you are interested organically, let us know. But majority of it will be most likely be conventional, and that one's an oldie but a goodie. It's been on the farm for a while, and it's been really good. Dual purpose for grain and forage, medium height. Has a little more grain protein compared to Quest. On that, and it was also released by the U of M. And this one is nice because it doesn't, like I said, it's an only very good, so that means that the PVP has expired, and you can save the seed for that. And then we'll talk about some forage barley. We have Royal, which is a good 6-row forage barley developed specifically for alfalfa, and as an underseeding companion, high protein, low fiber, low lean, which good to improve digestibility. Can be a short one with excellent standability. Nice early crop option. And you can use it for grain if needed, and it's similar to robust, but we prefer it to be more as a forage barley. And then the new one that we have on here is Lea Seed, and that is the new high-yielding 6-row barley, best utilized for grain and forage. It has been approved for malting, so you can use it for there, but we mainly recommend it for forage and our grain. It's a smooth on, so it's nice and with some good plump kernels, average height, medium maturity, good lodging, and it has some good disease resistance on there as well. And was released by University of This one is also PVP. And there was this, I think we may only have this one as conventional, correct? Not organic?
Ty, I don't know the answer to that question, unfortunately. Okay. The catalog indicates organic only, but I think you're right. I think we may have it as conventional. I'll add a couple things. So we do have 2 forage barleys. On a previous page, we talked about Levina. That is a very tall, high yielding or high forage yielding variety that will give you a lot of tonnage. We do not recommend underseeding it with alfalfa or clover because it is so tall. Royal is the opposite. It's a forage variety that's actually quite short. It doesn't give you very much tonnage, which seems like a weird concept for a forage barley. The reason that we sell it as a forage barley and the reason it was released as a forage barley by the University of Minnesota is because it's really good for underseeding. So it's very high quality, lower in lignin. It's short, and if you take it for forage, you can have an alfalfa underseeding or a red clover cover crop underseeding, and establish those with good success under Royal. And that's why we carry those 2 different forage barleys. And that's probably enough.
And then we do want to make a little change. It was kind of made the transition finally from bushel and a half to 50-pound units for oats, and barley is also going to be 50-pound units. So all our small grains are now going to be 50-pound units. Just want to call it out. Previously, it was different per oats, barley, and the other small grains.
Yeah, thanks for this slide, Ty. I think it's important to remember that when you're ordering. In the past, you would order by the bushel, and you can still call up and tell us how many bushels you want, right? You can say, well, I want 60 bushels, but we're going to convert that into 50-pound units, and you're going to order it then by the 50-pound unit rather than by the bushel. And that's the way it's going to be priced. So to an old timer like me, it looks like looks like our oat prices went way up this year. In fact, they didn't. In some cases, they're down on a per bushel basis, but the unit price is much higher.
All right, and that's it's everything. And then this is a picture of the famous einkorn that we've been hearing so much about. So, any time for some questions? Any questions that you may have in the chat here?
Yeah, so I see Bridget asked about Glen. Bridget, we do not have any Glen wheat this year. Our replacement for Glen is going to be Linkert. And we do have organic Linkert and conventional Linkert, both. It's the one that has replaced Glen for milling and baking. Another question. Matt says, I'm looking to plant wheat and have alfalfa in with it. I may plow it down the same year. I'm looking to add nitrogen and organic matter. Should I be looking into cheap, good alfalfa, or would clover be a better option? Matt, I suggest you give us a call and talk it over. It depends a little bit on where you farm and how and what kind of ground you have. Clover is cheaper. It's probably going to fix nearly as much nitrogen. However, clover can be pretty aggressive, especially in wetter ground, and sometimes farmers don't like how aggressive it is. It actually grows up into your wheat or your oats and can show up at harvest time and make it a little harder to get your crop dry. So I'd suggest giving us a call and talk it over with one of our salespeople. Good questions. Thanks.
Right, yep. No, sorry, I missed that. All right.
There's one more, Ty, from Brian,
Oh.
who's wondering, do you no longer have a winter barley? I think it was SB 151, was a nice early maturity. I had good luck with double cropping soybeans in Northeast Iowa.
Yeah, so we dropped SB 151, and we are carrying 2 winter barleys, Minnesota Equinox and KWS Orbit. I think I'm saying that right.
Yep.
And we believe Equinox is just as early, if not a little earlier, than SB 151 and much more winter hardy, and that's why we switched. KWS Orbit is another one that has been extremely high yielding, and at least in the Cornell trials is showing to be more winter hardy than the other available varieties. So that's why we switched to those 2.